Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Short Stories with Miss Tanya. We are going to continue on with our book, Sideways Stories from Wayside School. So we left off on chapter 10 with Paul, who looks like he likes to cause some mischief there, as you can see from the picture. So sit back, relax, have your favorite snack or drink, and let's get started. Paul had the best seat in Miss Jewel's class. He sat in the back of the room. It was the seat that was the farthest away from Mrs. Jewel's. Mrs. Jewel's was teaching the class about fractions. She drew a picture of a pie on the blackboard. She cut the pie into 8 pieces. She explained that each piece was 1/8 of a pie. Paul never paid attention. He didn't see the picture of the pie. He didn't see anything. Well, he did see one thing. Actually, he saw 2 things. He saw Leslie's 2 pigtails. Leslie sat in front of Paul. She had 2 long brown pigtails that reached all the way down to her waist. Paul saw those pigtails, and a terrible urge came over him. He wanted to pull a pigtail. He wanted to wrap his fists around it, feel the hair between his fingers, and just yank. He thought it would also be fun to tie the pigtails together, or better yet, tie them to her chair. But most of all, he just wanted to pull one. Slowly, he reached for one on the right. No, what am I doing? He thought. I'll only get into trouble. Paul had it made. He sat in the back of the room. He paid no attention to anyone, and nobody paid any attention to him. But if he pulled a pigtail, it would be all over. Leslie would tell on him, and he'd become the center of attention. He sighed and slowly withdrew his arm. But Paul couldn't ignore those pigtails. There they were, dangling in front of him, right in front of him, just begging to be pulled. He could close his eyes, but he couldn't make the pigtails disappear. He could still smell them and hear them. He could almost taste them. Ugh. Maybe just a little tug, he thought. No, no, no one, no. There they hung, easily within his reach. Well, let them just hang there, thought Paul. He would be foolish to pull one, no matter how tempting they were. None of the other children in the class pulled pigtails. Why should he? Of course, none of the other children sat behind Leslie. It was just a simple matter of being able to think clearly. That was all. Paul thought it was over and decided not to pull one. It was as simple as that. Suddenly, his arm shot forward. He grabbed Leslie's right pigtail and yanked. Yeah! Screamed Leslie. Everybody looked at her. Paul pulled my pigtail, she said. They all looked at Paul. I couldn't help myself, said Paul. You better learn to help it, said Mrs. Jules. She wrote Paul's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Now, tell Leslie you're sorry. I'm sorry, Leslie, said Paul. Said Leslie. Paul felt horrible. Never again would he pull another pigtail. Except there was one problem. He still wasn't satisfied. He had pulled the right one, but that wasn't enough. He wanted to pull the left one too. It was as if he heard a little voice from the pigtail saying, Paul, pull me, pull me. I can't, Paul answered. Name's already on the blackboard. The word discipline. Big deal, said the pigtail. Pull me. No way, said Paul. Never again. Oh, come on, Paul. Just a little tug, urged the pigtail. What harm could it do? Lots of harm, said Paul. Leslie would scream, and I'll get in trouble again. boy, that's not fair, whined the pigtail. You pulled the right one. Now it's my turn. I know, but I can't, said Paul. Sure you can, said the pigtail. Just grab me and yank. No, said Paul. It's not right. Sure it is, Paul, said the pigtail. Pigtails are meant to be pulled. That's what we're here for. Hmm. Tell that to Leslie, said Paul. Leslie won't mind, said the pigtail. I promise. I bet, said Paul, just like she didn't mind the last one. You just didn't pull hard enough, said the pigtail. Leslie likes us pulled real hard. Really? Asked Paul. Cross my heart, said the pigtail. The harder, the better. Um, okay, said Paul. But if you're lying, I promise, said the pigtail. Paul grabbed the left pigtail. It felt so good in his hand. He pulled as hard as he could. Yeah! Screamed Leslie. Mrs. Spool asked, "Who? Did you pull Leslie's pigtail again?" "No," said Paul. "I pulled the other one." All the children laughed. "Are you trying to be funny?" asked Mrs. Jules. "No," said Paul. "I was trying to be fair. I couldn't pull one and not the other." The children laughed again. "Pigtails are meant to be pulled," Paul concluded. Mrs. Jules put a check next to Paul's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. And at last Paul was satisfied. True, his name was on the blackboard with the check next to it, but that really didn't matter. All he had to do was stay out of trouble the rest of the day, and his name would be erased. It's easy to stay out of trouble when you have the best seat in the class. In fact, Paul could do this every day. He could pull Leslie's pigtails twice and then stay out of trouble the rest of the day. There was nothing Leslie could do about it. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Leslie screamed, "Ah!" Mrs. Joel spoke Paul's name and sent him home early on the kindergarten bus. Nobody would believe that he hadn't pulled Leslie's pigtails again. That's what happens. All right, chapter 11. Dana. Ooh, look at her. Nice little glasses there. She looks like a reader. Dana had four beautiful eyes. She wore glasses. That her eyes were so beautiful that the glasses only made her prettier. With two eyes, she was pretty. With four eyes, she was beautiful. With six eyes, she could have been even more beautiful. And if she had 100 eyes all over her face and all her arms and her feet, why, she would have been the most beautiful creature in the world. But poor Dana wasn't covered from head to foot with beautiful eyes. She was covered with mosquito bites. Mrs. Jules picked up her yardstick and said, "Now it's time for arithmetic." "Oh no, Mrs. Jules," said Dana. "I can't do arithmetic. I itch all over. I can't concentrate." "But we have to. All kinds of arithmetic," said Mrs. Jules. "In addition, addition with carrying, and carrying without addition." All right, I think I messed all that up. I'm going to say that again. Addition without carrying, addition with carrying, and carrying without addition. "I don't care," cried Dana. "We have to. We have that too," said Mrs. Jules. "Addition without carrying. Now, start carrying on." Dana whined. "I can't, Mrs. Jules. I itch too much." "And I'm thirsty too," said DJ. "I'm too tired," said Ron. "I'm too hungry," said Terrence. "I'm too stupid," said Todd. Mrs. Jules hit her desk with her yardstick. Everyone stopped talking. Mrs. Jules said, "We are going to have arithmetic now, and I don't want to hear anything about it." "But Mrs. Jules, I really do itch. I can't do arithmetic," Dana whined. "No," said Mrs. Jules. "Arithmetic is the best known cure for an itch. How many mosquito bites do you have?" I don't know, said Dana. Over 100. First, I try scratching one, but then another one starts to itch. So I scratch that one, and that one stops, and another one starts. So I scratch that one, and then the itch moves down to another one. Then it goes back to the first one. The itch just never stays in the same place. I just can't scratch them all. Hmm. What you need is a good, strong dose of arithmetic, said Mrs. Jules. I'd rather have calamine lotion, said Dana. Remember, Dana, said Mrs. Jules, mosquito bites itch, not numbers. So what? Said Dana. Mrs. Jules continued. We'll just have to turn your mosquito bites into numbers. I'm a mess, Dana moaned. Mrs. Jules began to turn the mosquito bites into numbers. How much is 3 mosquito bites plus 3 mosquito bites? She asked. Rondi raised her hand. 6 mosquito bites, she answered. How much is 6 mosquito bites minus 2 mosquito bites? Asked Mrs. Jules. 4 mosquito bites, said DJ. And how much is 5 mosquito bites times 2? Asked Mrs. Jules. 10 mosquito bites, said BB. Very good, said Mrs. Jules. I still itch, Dana complained. I've got one more question, said Mrs. Jules. How much is 49 mosquito bites plus 75 mosquito bites? Nobody raised their hand. Think, class, think, said Mrs. Jules. This one is for Dana. Nobody knew the answer. Dana's itch began to get worse and worse. At last, Dana began counting her own mosquito bites. She counted 75 on one side and 49 on the other side. Then she added them together for a total of 124 mosquito bites. 124 mosquito bites, Dana said. Very good, said Mrs. Jules. Dana had 174 mosquito bites, and none of them itched anymore. I'm still thirsty, said DJ. Can arithmetic do anything for that? I'm still tired, said Ron. I'm still hungry, said Terence. I'm still stupid, said Todd. I'm glad we turned my mosquito bites into numbers instead of letters, said Dana. I could never spell mosquito. All right, chapter 12. We're on a great timing here. So, Jason. Oh, looks like Jason has some gum stuck to his chair and his bottom. I wonder what happened there. Jason had a small face and a big mouth. He had the second biggest mouth in Mrs. Jules' class, and there were an awful lot of big mouths in that class. Mrs. Jules, Jason called without raising his hand. Joy's chewing gum is in class. Joy's chewing gum in class. Joy had the biggest mouth in Miss Jules's class and was filled with gum. There was hardly even room for her tongue. Joy, I'm ashamed of you, said Mrs. Jules. I'm afraid I'll have to put your name up on the board. That's okay, Mrs. Jules, Jason called. I'll do it. Jason hopped out of his seat and wrote Joy's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. While he was up, Joy took the glob of gum out of her mouth and placed it on Jason's chair. Rondi and Allison giggled. Jason walked back from the blackboard to his desk and sat down. Mrs. Jules, he called, I'm stuck. Rondi and Allison giggled again. Mrs. Jules got angry. Joy, you're going home on the kindergarten bus today. Oh, good, said Todd. I'll have some company. Todd went home on the kindergarten bus every day. He could never seem to make it to 12 o'clock without getting into trouble 3 times. His name wasn't even up on the blackboard yet, but he knew that by 12 o'clock it would be up, checked and circled. Mrs. Jules, what am I going to do? I'm stuck. I'm going to have to stay here the rest of my life, said Jason. Joy, tell Jason you're sorry, said Mrs. Jules. I'm sorry, Jason, said Joy. Oh, that's okay, Joy, Jason said. I don't mind. Try to get up, Jason, said Mrs. Jules. Jason tried. I can't, Mrs. Jules. I'm stuck. Mrs. Jules asked the three Erics to help. Eric Fry, Eric Ovens, pulled Jason. Eric Bacon held the chair. Stop, cried Jason. You'll rip my pants. Rondi and Allison giggled. All right, said Mrs. Jules. Let's try some ice water. That should freeze the gum and make it less sticky. I'll go get some from Miss Mush. Miss Mush was the lunch teacher at Wayside School. She had the remarkable ability to undercook a dish and overcook it at the same time. Her specialty was a nice hot bowl of mud. She called it porridge. Jason looked at Rondi and Allison. No, Miss Jules, he said, don't leave me. Besides, Miss Mush's ice water is probably warm. Don't be silly, Jason, said Miss Jules. I'm sure it will be at least as cold as her soups. Rondi and Allison leered at Jason. No, Mrs. Jules, don't go, begged Jason. I'll be right back, Jason, said Mrs. Jules. She went to Miss Mush for some ice water. As soon as Mrs. Jules stepped out the door, Rondi and Allison jumped up from their seats and started to tickle Jason. He laughed until his hair turned purple. The girls got back to their seats just as Mrs. Jules returned. Mrs. Jules carried a big bucket of ice cold water. Oh, no, please don't, Jason pleaded. We have no choice, said Mrs. Jules. She threw the water all over him. Well, said Mrs. Jules, try to get up. Jason was drenched. I'm wet and I'm cold and I'm still stuck. Oh, well, it didn't work, said Mrs. Jules. At least we have tried. Now I guess we'll have to cut your pants off. Rondi and Allison giggled. No, Miss Jules, no, Jason screamed. I don't mind being stuck here. I'm really very comfortable. Don't be silly, Jason, said Mrs. Jules. Don't cut off my pants, said Jason. The three Erics can carry you out to the bathroom, said Mrs. Jules. I'll ask Louis to call your mother. She can bring you a new pair of pants. The three Erics took hold of Jason's chair and turned him upside down. No, Mrs. Jules, said Jason. Now I'll always have a place to sit. I'll always have a place to sit down. I won't have to worry about finding a seat on the bus. The three Erics began to take him away. Wait, said Joy. Mrs. Jules, if I can get Jason unstuck, do I still have to go home on the kindergarten bus? All right, said Mrs. Jules. If you can somehow get Jason free, you don't have to go home early. Don't trust her, Mrs. Jules, said Jason. He was still hanging upside down. I'll just kiss him, said Joy. No! Jason screamed. Don't let her kiss me, Mrs. Jules. Throw water on me, tickle me, cut off my pants, hang me upside down from the ceiling, but don't let her kiss me. I'll just kiss him on the nose, said Joy. We've got nothing to lose, Jason, said Mrs. Jules. Oh, who would want to kiss Jason, said Allison. Jason hung helplessly upside down. Joyce stepped up and kissed him on the nose. Jason fell out of his chair and hit his head on the floor. Rondi and Allison giggled. Darn, said Todd. Now I'll have to go home alone again. Joy erased her name from the blackboard. Well, that's one way to do it. Ah, Rondi. I hope I'm saying that name right. I apologize if I'm not. Rondi had 22 beautiful teeth. Everyone else had 24. Rondi was missing her two front teeth, and those were the most beautiful teeth of all. Your front teeth are so cute, said Mrs. Jules. They make you look just adorable. But, Mrs. Jules, said Rondi, I don't have any front teeth. I know, said Mrs. Jules. That's what makes them so cute. Rondi didn't understand. Oh, Rondi, I just love your two front teeth, said Mauricia. I wish I had some like that. But I don't have them, said Rondi. That's why I love them so much, said Mauricia. Oh, this is silly, said Rondi. Everybody thinks the teeth I don't have are cute. I'm not wearing a coat. Don't you all just love my coat? And what about my third eye? I don't have one. Isn't it lovely? Love your hat, Rondi, said Joy. I'm not wearing a hat, Rondi screamed. That's what makes it so interesting, said Joy. Don't you think so, Leslie? Oh, yes, said Leslie. It's a very beautiful hat. Nice boots, too. I'm not wearing boots, Rondi insisted. Yes, said Joy. Very nice boots. They go so well with your hat. What hat? Asked Rondi. Yes, Leslie agreed. Rondi showed excellent taste by not wearing the hat or the boots. They go so well together. Rondi had had enough. She covered her head so nobody could see her hat. She put her feet under her desk so nobody could see her boots. Then she closed her mouth tightly so nobody could see her two front teeth. Suddenly, everybody who was sitting near her began to laugh. What's so funny? Asked Todd. The joke Rondi didn't tell, said Jason. Ask Rondi not to tell it again, Todd, said Calvin. Rondi, said Todd, don't tell it again. Rondi was horrified. She didn't know what to do. She kept her mouth shut and just stared at Todd. To her amazement, Todd laughed. Hey, everyone, called Todd. Listen to Rondi's joke. Rondi didn't say a word, but the rest of the class began to laugh. Mrs. Jules got very angry. She wrote Rondi's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. The classroom is not a place for jokes, she said. But Mrs. Jules, said Rondi, I didn't tell a joke. Yes, I know, said Mrs. Jules, but the funniest jokes are the ones that remain untold. Okay, said Rondi. If that's what you think, then that's what you'll get. I'll really tell a joke. That way I won't disturb the class, and tomorrow I'll wear boots and a hat. Of course, you won't like them as much as the ones I didn't wear today, but I better hurry up and tell my joke before you all start laughing. There was a monkey sitting in a banana tree. He was very hungry. He knew that somewhere in the tree there was a magic banana, and that once he ate that banana, he wouldn't be hungry anymore. He ate one banana. That wasn't it. He was still hungry. He ate another banana. That wasn't it either. He was still hungry. Finally, after he ate his 10th banana, he wasn't hungry anymore. I knew I'd find it, he said. It's too bad I didn't eat that one first. I wouldn't have had to waste all those other bananas. Nobody laughed. Nobody had even listened to Rondi. Mrs. Jules was busy teaching arithmetic, and everybody else was paying strict attention. Rondi slapped herself in the face to make sure she was really there. She was. The bell rang for recess. Rondi ran outside. She was very upset. Louis, the yard teacher, saw her. Why the frown, Rondi? He asked. Come on, smile. Let me see your cute front teeth. Rondi screamed. She socked Louis in the stomach, then bit his arm with her missing teeth. And that kind of bite hurts the worst. I think we have time for one more story. We'll see. All right, let's see how long this one is. Whoa, chapter 14, Sammy. It was a horrible, stinky, rainy day. Some rainy days are fun and exciting, but not this one. This one stunk. All the children were wet and wore smelly raincoats. The whole room smelled awful. Oh, it stinks in here, said Mauricia. Everybody laughed, but she was right. There was one good thing, however. There was a new boy in class. New kids are always fun, except no one could even tell what the new boy looked like. He was completely covered by his raincoat. All you can see is his eyes from the picture. Class, said Mrs. Jules, I'd like you all to meet Sammy. Let us show him what a nice class we can be. Leslie walked up and smiled at Sammy, but her smile quickly turned into a frown. You smell terrible, she said. Leslie, exclaimed Mrs. Jules, that's not a way to greet a new member of our class. Mrs. Jules wrote Leslie's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. But he does, Mrs. Jules, said Leslie. He smells awful. You're ugly, Sammy replied. Now, Sammy, that's no way to talk, said Mrs. Jules. Leslie is a very pretty girl. She's ugly, said Sammy. Allison spoke up. Well, you smell terrible and are probably even uglier, but nobody can see you because you're hiding under that smelly old raincoat. That will be enough of that, said Mrs. Jules. Now, Sammy, why don't you take off your coat, and hang it in the closet? Let us all see how nice you look. I don't want to, you old windbag, said Sammy. Oh, that's because he's so ugly, said Leslie. I'm not sure he's quite handsome, said Mrs. Jules. He's just shy. Here, let me help you, said Mrs. Jules. She took off Sammy's coat for him, but underneath it was still another raincoat, even dirtier and smellier than the first. Hmm. They still couldn't see his face. Oh, now he smells even worse, said Mauricia. You don't exactly smell like a rose either, Sammy replied. Mrs. Jules took off his second raincoat, but there was still another one under that, and the smell became so bad that Mrs. Jules had to run and stick her head out of the window to get some fresh air. You're all a bunch of pigs, Sammy screeched. Dirty, rotten pigs. The smell was overpowering. Sammy just stood there, hidden under his raincoats. Mrs. Jules wrote Sammy's name under the word discipline. Send him home on the kindergarten bus, said Joy. Not with me, said Todd. Mrs. Jules held her nose, walked up to Sammy, and removed his raincoat. She threw it out the window, but had on still another one. Sammy hissed. Hey, you old windbag, watch where you throw my good clothes. Mrs. Jules put a check next to Sammy's name on the blackboard. Then she took off another raincoat and threw it out the window. The smell got worse, for he had on still another one. Sammy began to laugh. His horrible laugh was even worse than his horrible voice. When Sammy first came into the room, he was 4 feet tall. But after Mrs. Jules removed 6 of his raincoats, he was only 3 feet tall. And there was still more raincoats to go. Mrs. Jules circled his name and removed another coat. She threw it out the window. Then she put a triangle around the circle and threw another one of his coats outside. She kept doing this until Sammy was only 1.5 feet high with every coat she took off. Sammy's laugh got louder and the smell got worse. Some of the children held their ears. Others could hold only one ear because they were holding their nose with the other hand. It was hard to say which was worse, the laugh or the smell. Sammy stopped laughing and said, Hey, you old windbag, if you took off one more of my coats and throw it out the window, I'll bite your head off. They smell too bad for me to allow them in my classroom, said Mrs. Jules. You can pick them up when you leave. They smell better than you do, pighead, Sammy shouted. Mrs. Jules didn't stop. She took off another one of his coats, then another, and another. Sammy was only 4 inches tall, 3 inches tall, 2 inches tall. At last she removed the final coat. All that was there was a dead rat. Ooh. Mm. Well, well, I don't allow dead rats in my classroom, said Mrs. Jules. She picked it up by the tail, put it in a plastic bag, and threw it away. Mrs. Jules didn't allow dead rats in her class. Todd once brought in a dead rat for show and tell, and Mrs. Jules made him throw that one away too. I'm glad Sammy isn't allowed in our classroom, said Rondi. I didn't like him very much. Yes, said Mrs. Jules, we caught another one. Dead rats were always trying to sneak into Mrs. Jules' class. That was the third one she's caught since September. All right, we are going to stop there. We are pretty much almost on the 30-minute mark. So we will continue on with the book next time with chapter 15 called Dee Dee. So I hope you guys are enjoying the book. I'm really enjoying reading it. I apologize if I made quite a few mistakes today. Um, and my voice, I literally probably just have like two voices, myself and Mrs. Jules, which probably isn't that great, but I don't know. I'll just keep trying it. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.